I don't even really know what the meaning of your record label name is to
Yeah.
you, what the origins are. But when you hear it, like it immediately feels good. It
Yeah.
immediately feels warm and fuzzy. Everybody's got their own Sunday dinner. They're like I feel like I know what that means. It's relaxing for me. It's a reunion. It's calm. Like I always think of Sunday nights as like the calm after the storm. It's like whatever just happened, it's like you're back home, you're in your comfort zone, you know,
Hmm.
so that's my interpretation. What is the meaning for you?
No, Scott. I mean, that's right on. I mean,
Good.
also the calm before the storm going into the
True.
following week.
Oh man, I've never
Yeah,
thought about that.
yeah, just getting your mind prepared and being around your loved ones and
Yeah.
breaking bread with your friends or your family in some cases, and being able to share stories, share ideas at the dinner table with your friends and family.
Yeah.
Because we're all coming from different walks of life, and being able to I'm big on individuality. So being
Hmm.
able for artists and people that help me run the label, I want people to show who they are as a person. So when they're at the table, which is Sunday Dinner Records, I want people to show who they are and represent themselves at the highest form possible.
It does, when you give it that visual, it does feel a little bit like everybody has their own seat at the table.
Yeah,
And when you think of a family, very rarely is everybody on the same page. Very
you're
rarely
right.
does everyone do the same thing for a living, believe in the same beliefs, or have the same political, especially later in life.
Yeah,
Everybody's different, but they're still welcome back.
for sure, for sure. I think there's and the age range too, like there's some
Yeah,
people, some
true.
some artists on the label that are like older than me, but they've experienced the music business in certain ways, or throughout certain times of their making them making music. But then you may have like someone that's younger, that's just like super hungry, just energetic, ready to just release music, but don't necessarily have like the experience as far as on the business side. So I tend to I like to work with any and everybody that just has a sense of like focusing on the music and making sure that the quality of the music is at best the best product possible.
Yeah,
So yeah.
that's amazing. You refer to the artists on your roster as family. Well, it literally says that on your website.
Yeah.
And that's a special thing to say. What does that look like for you? Why is it important for you to use that word instead of roster or just artists?
That's a really good question, because there has been you have these artists on the label that believed in me first and foremost to have their music placed on the label, and release the music. They trust in me, and I let artists know, like, this is just not a business thing for me. I actually want to build a relationship with you outside of the music, um, and most times, if not all, like I have a personal relationship with every artist on the label. They know what I experienced throughout my life outside of the label. I know what they go have going on outside of the label, and just it's more than just the music part. I think where we at with music. You need some sense of family around you when it comes
Mm.
to releasing music, dealing with uh, the promotional side, pre-release, post-release, but also just having that support system. So yeah, I look at my artists as family,
Mm.
regardless if there are other artists that have released music on the label, and they went on to go do other things, and I still look at them as family, because again, they took time out of out of their life to be like, you know what, I believe in this person's label,
That's nice.
and I trust in them, so they're family for me.
I remember I asked an artist, an independent artist, who wanted a record deal. And I said, "Why do you want a record deal?" And there was a couple of things that he mentioned, but one of the things was community. One of the things was
Hmm.
just like wanting to be a part of something. And a record label has reached a certain level of success when outsiders look at you and go, "I want in on that. Like, I
Right.
want to be at that table that you're referring to."
Yeah. We just had a couple of artists reach out to us on IG, just letting me know like, hey, we love what you're doing, and is there possible for us to release music? And
That's
I
amazing.
always have the door open for artists, even artists that release music and, like I said, go out to do other things with other labels or just their own thing. I always let them know the door is always open, and I'm not a stranger. Like, I give them my personal number. Hey, if you need anything, just give me a call, or if you want to
Yeah.
talk, I'm here for you. So
But when you have an open door policy, how do you protect your family? How do you protect that table? I mean, you got to be kind of, most of us don't get to pick our family, but like
yeah,
you have to kind of protect. Part of shepherding those artists, protecting those artists is like bringing in other people into that family that aren't toxic, that are on the same page artistically and in many different ways. Is that something you think about?
yeah, I definitely do, because you don't want to bring someone into the fold and just messes up the chemistry with the
Yeah.
label, and just also with just anything that you have going on. But for me, I'm more of a people's person. I'm an energy person. I tend to talk to artists more than actually releasing the music. Like, for example, JK, our last release, Dog Days, we've been working on that project for maybe 2.5 years, and we just now released it. But throughout
Mm,
this entire time, we've just been building, talking, connecting, figuring out who he is as a person,
sure.
visiting each other. And for me, is just having a foundation set, foremost. Like, if you have a foundation, understanding between you and that artist, I think that's where there won't be any miscommunications or no issues leading into the future. There needs to be a foundation and a clear cut understanding on what I'm here for and what you're here for. So,
And then it makes the release, it makes the final record in your hands or online. It makes it so much more rewarding when you've spent that much time building it together.
yeah, for sure. Because going back to JK, because JK is a producer where he's coming from an era where they upload music on SoundCloud or just Bandcamp
Yeah.
whenever they
Yeah.
want to. So him being able to kind of trust in me with his project, and by saying, okay, let's take our time, let's build a concept album. Let's actually bring it to light. Let's get someone to help us with the art, and let's
Yeah.
like bring everything. Let's kind of let's let everything complement each other,
Yeah.
and let everything connect. And I like that part about it. And so, yeah,
You like that part of the whole job?
yeah, I
Yeah.
love building a project from the
Yeah.
beginning all the way to the post release of everything. I like actually talking to artists. Okay, where you want to go with this album or this EP, and then start throwing out ideas, and some stick, some may not, but for the most part, it's more so just having that meeting of the minds with that artist and trying to figure out which direction they want to go with the project.
I think the record labels in our community, and you is a good example, nobody respects the album better than record labels, in my opinion. I'm biased, but I'm like, and I think it's because, and this is what you're talking about, but I think it's because I always used to think about what will this record look like on my Bandcamp homepage?
Yeah.
Because, that's like, where else do you see your catalog?
Hmm.
Face forward, we don't get to see them in record stores on shelves all next to each other, and I'm staring at your Bandcamp right now, and it's like it's evident what you're talking about
Yeah.
the care into the whole package, and I feel like that's one of the things that a record label really needs to kind of coach the artist and kind of drag the artist along into understanding how this album plays a role in their entire career over the long term.
Hmm.
Basically, like a 30,000-foot view of everything. And I think that's something, it seems to me, that you've done really well.
Yeah, and trust me, like I said, it's like if you go back to our earlier releases, man, like we were just trying to get music out there. But COVID happened, uh,
Right.
and it made us like kind of peel back and focus on one release at a time,
Hmm.
but also gave us time to take risks on actually getting our music pressed, getting our music on cassette. And that was a big year for us. Like 2020 to 2022 was like where we released some really good quality releases, and everything kind of just connected and
Yeah.
eyes were on us. And it still is, but I just think for us at that time, we were really taking our time with our projects, and it kind of set us to where we're at as of today, just quality over quantity, and just execute a release from beginning to end.
What is your quantity? Like, what is it? What do you feel comfortable doing in a given year?
Yeah, because I would just had this conversation with my therapist this week. So, no, I'm just finding that balance between like personal life, and
Yeah,
then
sure.
because I still work a full-time job, and
Yeah.
I'm a father, and
Awesome.
yeah, and so I'm just I wear a lot of hats. So
Yeah.
outside of that, I'm still running the label. So I kind of just right now I'm only focusing on 4 to 5 projects a year.
Hmm.
So like this year right now, all of our projects is going to be releasing third, top of fourth quarter of this year. So
Yeah. I
they're
mean,
already, yeah, go ahead.
that's a busy time, eh? Because it's
Yeah.
such a good time to release a record,
hmm
but it means you're busy.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I've this year I actually like took the first 6 months off. Like I just was trying to figure out how we're gonna move with releasing projects, and like I was working on JK's project, and then that released in August, and then we just started to July, and then we started to I started to okay, let me start working on the next project. So there are like 2 or 3 projects I'm currently working on that are like one I just submitted to a pressing company
Hmm.
for the next release, and then there's another cassette that we're doing for a re-release for an artist in New York, and then I have another vinyl release coming in the end of November. So
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of a stressful time. That's especially stressful when it's like
yeah,
down payments and
yeah.
art files. It's not the sexy part.
No, that's not, and you don't want to mess up that part.
I know. I know. I know.
Submit something wrong, or don't have the updated file for a cover, and
Mhm.
so that's like
Yeah.
I feel like making sure like you don't overlook anything and submit everything correctly is like the most important part of releasing or just submitting things to a vinyl pressing company or even a cassette company.
Even a cassette. Yeah. And I
Yeah,
mean, you're just spending all this money without getting anything back, you know?
yeah,
It's
yeah.
the worst
It's
part.
it's an investment for sure, and it's a risk that you're taking because like we everyone where we're at right now, we're in a digital age, and everyone's trying to find their footing when it comes to releasing music and hopefully getting some type of return back from it. But
Yeah.
I think for me, I try to not look at right now and just look at what can benefit or help us maybe later on down the line, 2 or 3 years from down the line. So
Oh, I'm kind of deviating from my questions, but I'm curious about cassettes 'cause we're talking
yeah,
about manufacturing right now. And vinyl, I understand. Everybody loves vinyl, and the people who don't love vinyl, they will love vinyl eventually. Like people are
hmm
all ages are coming to, and all genres are coming to vinyl. It's so cool to see. Cassettes, I don't think is the same thing. I think cassettes are a little bit more underground.
hmm
And I see cassettes though in every genre, like all across the board, mostly every genre, maybe not in pop, but or
yeah,
in classical music or whatever, but
yeah.
across the board mostly. How do cassettes do with your community? Like what are yeah, like what role did they play? I mean, obviously it's an affordable,
Yeah.
tangible product
Yeah.
compared to vinyl. It's something more significant and definitely cooler than just a digital release. Can you
Yeah.
tell me a little bit about how cassettes are working for you?
Yeah. That's a good, I mean, it's a niche market as far as like cassettes. The community that we serve when it comes to cassettes are like the beat scene, the instrumental
Okay.
scene.
Yeah.
A lot of the producers have a relationship or have a fan or support system or a fan base that buy those
Yeah.
products.
Yeah.
So it's easy for us to maybe focus on 20 or 50 cassettes and
Yeah.
limit it and then see how it does. But I feel like cassettes is like the next step before you get to vinyl. Sometimes, if you're talking about a certain artist, like one of our artists, Son of the Soul, his first release was a re-release that was on cassette, and it really gave us the kind of the roadmap to engage and figure out like, okay, who's going to buy just a physical product from
Yeah.
somebody like him. And we were able to have a clear indication. So the next release was vinyl and cassette, and we were able to move some vinyls as well as some cassettes. So, but he's a beat maker, that's the scene where, anything that's a tangible thing, such as vinyl, cassette, or CDs, those tend to move a lot in the underground indie scene.
Especially the sounds that are reminiscent of 80s and 90s. I feel like the cassette, it complements it so well. It almost sounds better on cassette.
Yes. and a lot of these producers, they are really, some of them are actually blending their own tapes and taking old tapes and actually curating mixes or curating a whole album around it. So, it's a good opportunity again for and it's low cost, being able to
for sure
press a couple tapes and sell it at a show and make some money. But I think it's a great roadmap to getting your stuff placed on vinyl too. So
100%. Yeah. And I mean, you're right. Like, I love the stepping stone analogy. We've used that, people have talked about that before on the podcast, and it is so true and it's it's a business sense to test the market for an artist,
right?
Because it's like, well, maybe you just have passive fans on Spotify and or SoundCloud, and maybe they're not actually going to pull out their wallet for you, and to $300 or $400, and you can have a beautiful cassette between 30 to 50 copies, and if you sell a dozen of them or you sell all of them, yeah, you're right. That's a good indicator. Okay, now we can maybe take that $1,500 risk, $2,000 risk on vinyl.
Right.
That's the smartest way to do it.
Right. And even with CDs, CDs are making a comeback to a certain extent, but like there is still like a large community out there. Like there's Reddit pages strictly for cassettes where you're able to like, focus on like, okay, I want to, in like record stores, like we have a record store in Dallas that buy our cassettes as well. So
awesome.
There's a possibility where your record, a cassette can still make it to a store. We have a good relationship with Odd Tapes. They're based out of Japan. They buy tapes from the underground indie scene with producers. So
no, that's great. Well, yeah, for sure. That's it's nice to be able to ship some of those overseas as well. Speaking of Dallas, I want to just go back to that family table for a second. Are you ever able to actually get them around a physical table, or are your artists too far apart?
Some live in Austin. A few came out to visit me. Like a lot of the times, early on, like again, like that, I think that COVID era was a big for us. We were able to build content for our label. We had this website series called The Recipe. And a lot of the times where that was my first time meeting an artist, like Shine, he flew out to Dallas for the weekend. We shot his episode, and that was my first time meeting him. The first time I met Wig Flipper, we shot like 4 videos and did his episode for The Recipe. So the 10th anniversary is sometime around 2026. The goal is for me to actually bring everybody together.
Beautiful.
But no, it's sometimes if I'm in their city, I was in New Orleans last month. I went to go see an artist, Bobby Rush. He was out there. So it depends. I'm always reaching out and letting people know, hey, my schedule's here. I'm going to be here. And we always grab dinner. But for the most part, the last time everybody was together, man, it was 2017, but it was like half of the label. They were just here. I put together like a Dallas show, and it was like half of the label that was here. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah. Can you tell me the history of the label?
History of the label. So it really started just helping my brother and my friend like with their music and like trying to like play the background, letting them know like, okay, you should rap on this beat, or we should be doing this. We should be shooting a visual, just kind of assisting in that. And then I always kind of had this bug in me to run a label. So uh, I kind of was helping them, and then I stopped, and I created a blog for indie labels or indie artists, and did that for a couple years. And I took a break, graduated from college, and then that bug kept just was still there. So I met this artist. I met a couple artists online, and I told them like, "Hey, I want to kind of help you with your next project." While I was slowly rolling out like the creation of Sunday Dinner, and it kind of went from there. Um, and we released our first compilation, which is in 2016, which
Okay.
features some of those artists in the beginning of stages of like me working on their EP or me working on their album. So we wrote out the compilation, and then that's how we kind of started rolling out some of our first releases. Black Leaf, Ronnie C, Jigsaw Paul started like helping artists and putting together their projects after the compilation.
So 2016, where did you get the bug? Where did that come from? Because that's always a thing that is curious for me. I mean, like most people who are music fans want to be rock stars,
Yeah.
or pop stars. Most people, maybe some people want to like, be a great drummer or whatever, a great guitarist or something. Very few people say, "Hey, I want to be the guy in the office, making, sending the emails." So where did you catch that bug?
Um, as a kid, just being around like music magazines, seeing some of the labels like a No Limit Records, being able to see like Loud Records, getting older, looking through the indie scene like a Stone Throws,
Yeah.
some of like the indie labels as well, like Big Dada. Like it's just a kind of a combination of like different labels that I always like notice like, okay, this is being released under Stone Throws. Like, oh my God, like they have
Yeah.
just a collection of dope artists. Like, and same thing with No Limit, their consistency with just dropping releases and planning releases and marketing all of their releases all at one time. So I always just kept that in back of my head, and buying records, always seeing that one particular logo and just kind of making that connection. So it really started during that time as a kid, just buying records and looking at music magazines like the Source, Double XL magazines, and
Yeah. Yeah.
reading reviews of different releases.
You're right. I think any astute music fan, any like really, the kind of music fan that would spend time on message boards, speculating when the artist is going to drop an album or whatever. Those are the people who, like you say, flipping through those magazines, seeing the ads and seeing that same
Yeah.
logo in the bottom left corner of the ad. It's like a detective almost. You're just starting to
Yeah.
put it together. And be
Yeah.
like, I reckon I keep seeing that. I keep seeing that logo.
Yeah. Because
Yeah.
when you see that logo, that's it's quality behind that, especially if
Yeah.
it's one of your favorite labels, through thick and thin that they're always going to release something super dope or super different from what everybody else is doing. So that played a part in it.
It's amazing how logos and brands how they have such a magical grip on you, like
Yeah.
Nike. I mean, my favorite labels, your favorite labels are very similar to Nike, where you see it
Yeah.
from afar and you're like, I want to have that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's cool. I think that's cool.
Yeah, like I tend to look at logos as conversation piece. Like when we put these hats together, like the Sunday Dinner hats.
Oh, I didn't even notice you're wearing that. That's beautiful.
Yeah. So we put these together last year and the year before that. We're sold out on the black and brown ones completely, but like being able to people reach back out to me after they bought one and say, "Hey, man, I was at the bar and someone asked about what is Sunday Dinner Records, and I
Yeah.
just told them about your label." It's just it's a conversation piece, like being able to have again, product, going back to what we said, product, just quality product at that. You're able to create a conversation, but also create some sort of I guess I
I
don't
know
know
what
the
you're saying.
words.
I
Yeah,
know what
yeah,
you're
yeah.
saying. You don't want to sound arrogant, but like it elevates everything, man.
It does. It
It's
does.
when I see a label and I see like a hoodie on here too, but on Bandcamp. But like when I see a label with all of these cool products, really cool looking cassettes,
Yeah.
and then like a cool sweatshirt and a cool
Yeah.
hat, and it's like it feels like there's a movement behind there, and it's like one thing leads to the other. You know what I mean? Like to
Yeah.
dress well and to listen to great music and eat great food and drink
Yeah.
great wine. It's all
Yeah.
connected.
Yeah. I mean, that's, really, that's what we're all striving for. Is just quality. Is like
Quality, yeah.
through like fashion, art, entertainment, health.
Yeah. Yeah.
These things matter. So uh, when I'm pushing a release, I'm focusing on the quality from every aspect.
I'm curious about the food connection. So we have the Sunday Dinner Records. You
Yeah.
carried this analogy through like food and utensils on food being family. I think is community. Food being
Yeah.
the products, the
Yeah.
actual records, and
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
the utensils, I guess, is like merchandise and stuff. I
Yeah.
love it. First of all, shout out to my friends at Full Plate Records because it reminds me a lot of what Full Plate does in
Shout out
Atlanta.
to them. Yeah. Shout out
And
to them.
I just think it's really cool. So what role does this have? Is it just like analogy you just want to pull through, or is there some sort of food connection?
Yeah, I mean, I won't, my fiance won't let me say this, but I can cook, I can, I can throw down to the kitchen, but I'm not like, like certified,
Sure.
but,
Yeah. Good for you.
But it just comes with the whole territory of like, you are what you eat. Those
Yeah.
things, like I love to play on like word statement
Yeah,
quotes.
yeah,
Like it's
yeah.
more of those things of like we're all chefs in our own way. We're cooking, we're preparing through things in our life, from what we're dealing with in our relationships, our work life, or even the label. Like I look at everything as just like I'm a chef in the kitchen. This is my own kitchen. I have my set of knives. I'm cleaning, I'm prepping, I'm serving, and being able to provide a quality product or food or just a conversation or just myself, a better me to people when they're in my kitchen. So, yeah.
That's beautiful. There is no better analogy for music and for record labels and community and musician stuff than with food. I mean, the words that you've just talked about, cleaning and preparing and serving. I mean, serving, right? Like that's the idea of just putting a plate down in front of someone else, but it goes way deeper than that.
Way, the relationships that we have, we're serving those relationships. We're building those relationships, and everyone plays a part into this. It's just not me. It's the art director. My fiance, she has a hand in it as well, just listening to records or just saying, okay, the title of this grammar wise is just not correct. Let me fix this. Like everybody plays a part in this. So yeah. And again, one of our hoodies, the family that eats together, like, I'm making sure that everybody has a part in it, and we all have our share when it comes to this label.
I think the thing about food is that, we need food, I suppose.
Yes.
But but we don't need to do food the way we do it in, the Western world, and especially in America, and especially in the South. I've been there, and it's like, it's good. But it's like, the way we do food, we don't need to do that, right? Like you can IV yourself with nutrients. You could have just pills and drink water, and you don't need to make it this big celebration of food the way that Americans do.
Yeah.
But there is something more meaningful than that. And I think the same is true for music.
Of course. Like even like you have a way about releasing your releases on the label. I mean, same with me. Like, we're focusing on the quality. That's and I'm going to say this word a lot. It's just focusing on the quality of the release or just the artist, and making sure that they're they're at a comfortable space of releasing a product and that they can be happy with. And yeah, and putting them in the kitchen as well to create their own their food, if you may say.
Well, focus on quality. You know, I got to write this down because I often find in any interview, there is like a pull quote, or there's something that the guest will say that um, really just resonates with me, and that's why I got to write it down.
Yeah.
Just yesterday, I was chatting with TT the artist, and we were doing this um, podcast, and she was talking about make music that feels good. That really hit me, and I wanted to just print it off and post it in the studio so that when I'm recording, it's like this song has just got to feel good. Doesn't matter what emotion we're feeling, you just got to feel good.
Yeah.
Your quote for me that's hitting me is focusing on quality, because it is something that like we don't really think about in making music, because music is subjective. We feel like we don't have to make it quality because it's subjective. So it's like if you don't like it, then you don't get it. But
Right.
it's like the fact is like some people like things that are done really, really well, like a great film or a great meal, they win, they do well because somebody has focused on quality. And I mean, listen, it goes back to that food analogy. Like there's like crappy food, there's crappy dishes that I make that they do not taste good, they're not enjoyable, they're not beautiful. They get me full at the end, whatever. But there's nothing better than sitting down to like an incredible dish. And focusing on quality. I'm sorry, I'm preaching here, but it's like our audience, I just don't think really focus on that enough. They really underestimate it.
Yeah. And again, we're coming from the indie world where like we're fighting for attention from the support from listeners as well as their time. And so we have to show in ways when it comes to artwork, the visuals, the artists, everything has to like really be better than what you've put out before, or even better than what's going on the mainstream level. Like I feel like us in the indie world, we just because we don't have the budget doesn't mean we can't work around certain things that we can execute and maximize to the best. Like every release that I've worked on, I went from, okay, an artist will be like, okay, I want to go this art direction. I'm like, okay, this is going on vinyl. Imagine you're at a record store and you see this artwork. Do you really want that to be like that? And they're like, and I like, don't tell me now, just think about it. And then we'll jump on a call and then we'll discuss it. But I want artists to understand, like, you know, and, you know, I don't want people to half-ass. Like, we'll be able to execute a release the way you want to without losing you as an artist, but also just taking it up a notch as far as like when they see something like an artwork, like it's just like, oh man, like who is that? What is that? And the artwork to me is like the most important thing out of all of it, because you have that one moment for someone to just look at that artwork and don't even know who it is and just listen to it that one time. And it's, I believe in the music. It's just everything else around it. We got to bring it to life. So
you're preaching to the choir, man. I mean, it's like, you think of the record store, right? I mean, I can flip through a record every millisecond, and when something stops me, it's not the music, it's the
artwork. Yeah,
it's the artwork. And same thing with the scroll.
Yeah, same thing with that. So it's just like you. That's, and again, this is the digital age. Like when we're on Spotify or Apple Music, those, like the first thing that we are looking at is the artwork, you know? Yeah. So, yeah.
When you talk about indie and how it's our responsibility, I don't think a lot of people in our audience think that way, because indie can be an escape. Indie can basically give us permission that it doesn't have to be as good as the majors because they have a bigger budget. So we have a smaller budget, so the artwork's gonna look rougher, or we're gonna put this package together at home, and that there's cool to it. The DIY side of the industry is cool and keeping our expenses down. But I do also think, like we need to, there's a lot of great indie labels that the majors are looking at and are
Of course.
copying. And
Yes.
I'd like to be one of those.
Of course, of course. Like there's so many major labels that are like taking
Hmm.
indies label or an artist from an indies label's
Yeah.
whole rollout plan and just
Yeah.
remixing it and then just going it with for and
Yeah.
using it for a major artist. So
Yeah.
I feel like we create a lot of like I feel like we're the cool kids of the industry,
Yeah.
when it comes
Yeah.
to the indie to the music world. Like the indie world, as far as independent labels, independent artists, some of the best releases that I've heard in the last 5 years are all coming from independent labels. And
It's a good point. We don't have to view ourselves as less than.
right,
Hmm.
right,
Yeah.
right, right. So being able to talk to you today, like, you have a platform celebrating
Mm.
record labels, particular, indie labels, like that means a lot. We
Mm.
don't have we don't have that platform,
Yeah. Yeah. It's
So
true.
it's
Yeah.
just yeah.
Let's go back to 2016 for a second here. And what do you regret? What would you do different now? I mean, even the evolution you've talked about, the records have
Hmm.
evolved, and what would you smack yourself about 10 years ago or 8 years ago?
Um, that's a really good question, Scott.
Sorry to put
Because
you on the spot.
no, 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 no. That I mean, it's a really good question because there's definitely a lot of record a lot more.
Mhm.
BTS, a lot of BTS, a lot of footage. I wish I would have done that more. Just
Yeah.
the building stages of like the
Yeah.
label,
Yeah.
being able to see the ups and downs and working a project from beginning to end, especially some of the artists on the label that lived in Dallas at that time, like being able to document that, and not jumping on the physical scene early as well too. Not
Oh, really?
yeah, like I'm not saying I wish, but I feel like if we were to take that chance early on and just kind of go ahead and get ahead of it versus like wait, I think that would have helped a little bit. But
Wait,
you
wait,
know,
wait. I'm misunderstanding you. Are you saying you wish you had done physical
physicals,
earlier?
yeah, like early on, like
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Oh, I
yeah,
thought you were
like
saying the opposite.
no, 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 like so because this was like 2016, 2018, we're talking about at the height of like streaming services. And
Yeah,
a lot
yeah,
of the scene was like really pushing to get their records on streaming services. And
yeah.
like that was the thing. But I feel like why everyone was going that route, I think we should have said, you know what, we know where the scene is going, like far as on the physical level. Let's go ahead and take a chance on getting something pressed up on vinyl or even onto cassettes first. But uh, you live and you learn. In the beginning of
Yeah.
the those stages, you were just trying to get on. You wanted to be able to be like, my music is everywhere. And then it went from my music is everywhere. Okay, I want to get placed on like Spotify curated playlists. Yeah,
You know what's funny about our regrets, and I feel the same for me. Most
yeah,
of my biggest regrets are not that I regret doing something, it's that I regret not doing something.
yeah.
And that's what you're saying.
Yeah, basically, yeah. Like just should have added a little more things to.
Yeah. Should have believed in yourself more.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
and that's the challenge too. Just trying to deal with that. You're your biggest critic, so
Yeah.
yeah.
I was, going to do vinyl on a release, and so I was getting the money together and getting the artwork for that. And then
Hmm.
I thought, well, I'll do cassettes too because there are those people, so we'll do cassettes. And then I was like, people have been hounding me for CDs. There's
Hmm.
a certain people. And so then I was stopping myself. I'm like, okay, this is, going to be probably $4,000 or $5,000 up front to do all of these things.
Yeah.
And then in the back of my mind, it's like, just do it, just pay for it and do it. And then it'll motivate you to sell them later, as
Right.
opposed to being like, I think I'll chicken out. So, I have been trying to train myself more to just pull the trigger and then, it motivates me to work. I feel like action is always better than inaction.
Of course, of course. Like being able to like, okay, you submit a project to a vinyl company and they're like, okay, well, here's our link to our website, upload the recordings, the artwork, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh, it's happening. 6-7 weeks from now, I will have 100 copies to my door.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
so yeah, and then also just like the conversation with records too, like that helps in between like each release and where you're getting reviews or you're getting like kind of like some of the homies that run labels as well and some artists that reach out to you and be like, man, I really love that release that you did. Like,
Nice. Yeah,
so that
that's
just
great.
helps to push to keep going.
When you're promoting a record,
Yeah.
how are you finding listeners for the releases? How are you kind of giving it its proper release? Is it unique to each album, or do you kind of have like a rollout plan that you've that's worked for you in the past?
I say a little bit of both. Like when for me, introducing a new artist to the label, I tend to either drop like a visual or some
Mm-hmm.
sort of
Mm-hmm.
snippet, um, just introducing this person to the label so I can have all focus on this individual. Like for example, JK, like he never has done any like promo for a project before. So being
Right.
able to like, okay, I have this idea, super subtle, super smooth, super simple, but yet it's impactful because I like the element surprise. A lot of people didn't know we were bringing him to the label. So dropping a visual, releasing it on Sunday, just on brand with us. I tend to like introduce it like that. But if it's someone like Astro Mega who has a great relationship with us, we are like 4 or 5 records in with the label, and he does a lot of his releases on vinyl or cassette. We tend to just like either drop like a snippet of a visual from the project and then start pre-orders and drop all the artwork at once. And then we'll slowly start maybe put together a show or maybe a tour or maybe some sort of just content for like online purposes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I love Astromech. I love that's one of my favorites. So that's interesting. Let's talk about instrumental stuff. I
Yeah.
think a lot of what I heard, or some of what I heard, is instrumental.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, is there a different approach to promoting or releasing instrumental tracks or records, or is can it be challenging? Are there things that, you need to rely more on visuals? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, man, that's a great question. Just for me, is just getting a producer into the mind of them saying, hey, I'm an artist as well. I'm
Yeah,
not
yeah.
actually vocally saying something on a record, but I'm producing a lot of the times the releases that we made, we're putting together concept albums, instrumental albums, like, and being able to sell it in that way. Like Astro, well, I'll say, like we put together like a beat series on our label called Motel 6, where this idea that me and Sahara's Greenery had, where we're able to bring 6 producers together and create this world where imagine 6 producers going to a hotel or a motel and there's 6 floors, one producer on each floor in one room, and they have 20 minutes to curate a project. And we put that together on a limited cassette, and like being able to bring that to the fold of people and be like, okay, this is the Motel 6 series where it's just 6 producers. Like it gets people in the mindset like, oh, wow, like this is different. So I feel like either through a visual or some sort of like animation of some sort to kind of bring people into your world, especially a producer, that helps a lot.
Great point, because you're right. Without lyrics, without a voice,
Yeah.
it's hard to envision an artist.
Yeah. Yeah.
That can be a challenge. How do you how do you split? I mean, with local record stores, local events, and physical stuff, are you aiming for a global audience on social and on streaming and on Bandcamp versus trying to get tapes into record stores and stuff like that on the ground level or where the artists are from? Do you split your focus there?
Yeah, for the most part, like,
Yeah.
sometimes I'm reaching out to particular record labels in those artists' cities and just saying, hey, this artist is from here. We pressed
Yeah.
this release and seeing if we can get some records in their store on consignment. And a lot of times we get the green light, but then
Good.
we're also building kind of like a flagship or a flag, planting our flag in the city of Dallas, because a lot of our artists are like spread out in the United States and also in London, but we're trying to get more artists that's locally based in Dallas.
Mm.
So being able to like put together, curate different events with like record stores and help them and bring artists here and invite other artists to come to the city of Dallas. And then, yeah, so that's kind of like split both ways for me right now.
Do I was going to ask you about, um, now I've lost my train of thought. Oh man, it'll come. I'm sure it'll come back to me. I'm
Yeah.
sure it'll come back to me. I was just focusing on what you're saying. What are the? Oh, I know what it was. Gosh, sorry. It was the artist versus the label. I'm so
Yeah.
biased about labels. I like labels more than I like artists.
Yeah.
And which is weird because without artists we wouldn't have labels. But
Yeah.
I like labels, and I like to attach myself to a label. And I like your label, and I like all of the releases on your label. How do you balance promoting Sunday Dinner versus promoting just one of the artists? What is more important to you? What do you think is easier to engage a fan of this music?
Yeah, oh, man, that's another great question. Like for me, like if I'm focusing on if there's a particular if I'm focused on a release, that's my only focus.
Yeah.
I'm not doing anything that's really Sunday Dinner related. I'm
Okay.
focusing on like this particular release from the start to finish.
Yeah.
But because like for example, again, going back to these hats, a lot of people reached out to me like, hey, when you're doing hats. So I'm kind of getting back into that mindset of like still pushing the brand through like our hats and other things. But for the most part, I kind of just find balance, but mainly is leaning towards focusing on a release or an artist on that side more than anything at this point.
That's probably healthy. I think that
Yeah.
the reason why we do promote the labels is something we can control, right? I mean,
Yeah,
you can't
yeah.
control if an artist is active on social media or not, but you can control the image of the label.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And I think like, there are artists on the label where, they won't post,
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
won't engage or they won't be on social media like that. And I respect that. But, I tend to be like, okay, then that's where we will do our part and then carry on some more on our end to make sure that we're pushing that particular artist album or whatever they have. Because, I don't tend to push artists to like, hey, you got to be on social media 24/7.
sure,
Yeah, like
sure,
it's just yeah.
And I think it's looking like you're heading in the direction, or you're getting to the place where, and this to me I think is the dream, where a label has a big enough following who trust you as the curator
Yeah.
to do releases, to do formats that they're going to love, almost to the point where like they get an alert from you, they're going to buy it.
Yeah.
And you can almost, when you're pressing 200 records, you almost know we got 50 or 100 that our fans are probably going to gobble up.
Yeah.
That's a really great place to be.
I just want to keep pushing, moving forward. For Emotion is like something that I've been like really trying to focus on and like not, like you said, earlier, not taking that chance. Like I gotta, in order for us in the label and the indie label world, we got to take those chances. We got to roll that dice. And sometimes we may lose, but sometimes we may win. But I like to not live on like, man, we lost today. No, like, I want to learn from that loss. Like, oh, well, we did pretty good during that moment. So just looking at it from a different perspective. And also just, like I said, taking chances,
That's good. Yeah. What's the goal for the label? You got 2 years until you hit 10 years. Like what your forward motion, or like what does that look like for you?
I know everyone says like, I want to get a better distribution deal, but I just want to continue to grow the label and it to be a respectable respectable label in the indie scene. I want our label, when people see it on paper, see it online, they're like, oh, like that's Sunday Dinner Records. I know their releases, or I know some of them. And being able to continue to build relationships with artists, also record stores, and just growth just in that aspect. And again, going back to that quality, where just being able to focus on each release and execute every release moving forward, and don't leave anything on the table. Like if we want to do this for a particular project, let's go ahead and try it. So
I think the fuel for your forward motion is this quality. I think that quality in your rollouts, quality in the artists, quality in the products, quality in the music, of course. And I see it comes through. You know what I mean? Like I do research on labels once a week, and occasionally you stumble upon a Bandcamp like yours where you're like, oh, this is coming through. The quality is coming through. You can smell it. And I feel like that just only gets better and better.
Thanks, Scott.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for doing this. It's great to meet you and great to chat with you.
No, man, it's good to meet you. I was telling you earlier, like I used to drive while I work and just listen to your podcast or the YouTube channel. Yeah, so
that's great. Thanks.
Yeah, man. Thank you for this opportunity.